So I thought I would do a really quick mid-year book freakout tag. Even though I've never done one of these before, I'm just gonna pretend I'm like a YouTuber and do them anyway. First question is the best book you've read so far. I can do what I want, so I'm gonna give you 5 of them. First being Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. Second being Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. The third I'm giving you is These Silent Delights by Micah Nemerever, not the other one, this one. Fourth book I'm gonna give you is Middle Game by Shauna Maguire. And then we have my newest, which is Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. My dogs are making a lot of noise right now. Then I'm gonna give you some honorable mentions too, because even though some of these are my favorite books of the year so far, there are some books that I would consider like the best books that I found to be very, very good and that I loved, but that I wouldn't just like squeal over like they're my favorites. So those honorable mentions are gonna be School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan, Kindred by Octavia Butler, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, of course. This is not the correct book, but the same author, but my favorite was Alone with You in the Ether by this author. I didn't really like this book, so pretend it's Alone with You in the Ether. And then honorable mention is anything I read by Sally Rooney, which would be all of her books. This year I read Conversation with Friends, Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I loved both of them. And weirdly enough, I have not read any sequels. I've read a few complete series and I'm not really going to count those here, but I'm going to give you 3 sequels that I'm either currently reading or that I'm very excited to read. The first one is the sequel to Middle Game, which is Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire, and I'm on page 140 and I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much that I'm purposefully taking it as slow as I can, and I've been reading this on and off for several months now, and it's so good. Then a sequel that I'm looking forward to, also by Shauna Maguire, is the Wayward Children series. I started reading this on audio and my husband loves them and he got copies of the books, and so I'm really excited to dive into these. Some of them are standalones, there's an actual series, some of them are written in the same world but by the same author under a different name, and I think that is really cool, and I'm just absolutely loving everything by her. Then I'm also looking forward to reading the sequel to Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I loved this book. I read it for a book club with some teachers at school and I thought it was great, and I've heard really good things about the sequel. I just haven't picked it up yet. So that one's on my list to get to this year as well. All right, question 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and I'm going with Braiding Sweetgrass. I have heard such incredible things about this book, and while nonfiction is not usually my jam, I am really, really excited about it. I read the first 2 chapters and cried already, so I think this one's gonna be so good. You can just tell already. The writing is beautiful, the topic is really important, so this one I think is gonna be a fave. And then the 4th question is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I'm gonna cheat a little bit on this one too, and I'm gonna go with the sequel to Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which comes out in January, so not this year, but I am just so excited for it. I loved Ninth House, I read it twice, and I think the sequel is gonna be great. For biggest disappointment, I have 2, and the first one is a thriller, They Never Learn, excuse me, by Lane Fargo. I had high hopes for this one. I thought it was gonna be a thriller that I actually got really into. I thought it was gonna be dark and deep and critical and that kind of thing, and it kind of just fell flat for me and was like just your run-of-the-mill serial killer thriller, and it just wasn't for me, so I was pretty disappointed in that one. Then I'm also really disappointed in Howl's Moving Castle. Now, going into this, my expectations were very off from what the book actually was, and I think that definitely affected my reading experience with this book, but either way, it just wasn't for me. I didn't have a good time reading it. I'm not a fan of middle grade. I'm not a fan of this kind of weird writing. I love a lot of weird, but this kind of weird just wasn't for me, so I was really let down by this. I do still love the movie though. Then the next question is your biggest surprise, and for that one, oh wait, I have another disappointment. Hold on. Yeah. That would be Book of Night by Holly Black. I almost just wanted to erase it from my memory. I was so disappointed. It's just like not good. It's just really bad. I didn't like her other writing, and I really hoped that giving her adult writing a chance would kind of change my opinion on her as an author, and let's just say that it didn't, and that's fine. Another disappointment was actually House of Breath and Sky by Sarah J. Maas. I'm a big Maas fan, don't get me wrong. I loved Throne of Glass series, I loved ACOTAR, I loved the first one in this trilogy, but this one just fell really flat for me. I hated it. I did not enjoy reading it. I thought the pacing was super weird, the characters were really annoying, and there were just not a lot of redeeming qualities for this one, so that's okay. And then, now for the most surprising. This is the Written and Read series by Anne Bishop. So I just recently got into fantasy in the pandemic, as a lot of people did. And this series was recommended to me by another booktuber, and it's just not something I normally read. The cover is it's just so cringy. I hate it. But I absolutely love this series. I had so much fun with it. There's 5 or 6 books, I think. I don't even know. I don't even remember. And I read them all super quickly and just, you know, classic escapism, and I had a great time with them. So I was really surprised and happily surprised by these. For new favorite author, I'm gonna go with a couple. First, I'm gonna go with Shauna McGuire. Obviously, this one's a new favorite author because I've picked up a sequel to this. I've picked up a different one of her series. I'm just having such a good time. I also listened to another book of hers, In the Shadow of Spindrift House, written under Mira Grant. I listened to that on audiobook and loved it too. So Shauna McGuire is really up there for me this year. Another favorite author I'm gonna go with is Micah Nimmerever, who wrote These Violent Delights. This book is probably in my top 5, maybe my top 3, maybe my top 1 book for this year so far, and unfortunately it is the only book that Micah Nimmerever has published. So I feel weird adding it to like a favorite author list because there's only one of them, but I can tell you right now, I would read anything that they wrote, ever. Like anything that they write in the future, I'm reading it, and I'll probably love it. Then I'm also gonna go with Charlotte McConaughey, I think that's how you say her last name, who wrote Once There Were Wolves, and then also who wrote Migrations. I have not read this yet, but I already have a feeling I'm gonna love it. I absolutely loved her writing. Okay, I hate these questions, but number 8 is your newest fictional crush. I don't know, I have crushes on everyone. I get a crush on every single person when I read the book. When I'm reading Strange the Dreamer, I have a crush on Laszlo. When I'm reading, like, okay, so I'm gonna go with not Vladimir from Vladimir, but our protagonist, if we can call her that, from Vladimir, who's never mentioned. I love her. I love her so much. She's so smart and she's so funny, and I just feel like I would love getting a glass of wine with her. And then I'm also gonna go with Mungo from Young Mungo. You know, actually these are, so the question is fictional crush and then favorite character, and I've kind of done those backwards and mixed them all up, so oops. But I'm also gonna go with Mungo from Young Mungo. I absolutely adored this book. I adored the story. This book made me sob, it made me laugh, it made me mad, it made me happy. I just want everyone to read this, and I will never recover from it. And I love Mungo with my whole entire heart. And then I'm also, I guess for crushes, but I guess also favorites because they're like not good people, so maybe I won't say they're crushes, would be Paul and Julian from These Violent Delights. I love both of them, and they're just so bad, but they're so good, and they love each other, and like they're just, if you know, you know. They have a special place in my heart, but they're not good people, so just a warning there. And then our last question is a book that made you cry. And I think the one that really broke my heart the most is gonna be Young Mungo. So we're gonna go with this. I think this is the one that just really did me in, you know? There's just a lot of tragedy in here, and a lot of being misunderstood, and a lot of different kinds of violence, and it was just the whole package. For book that made me happy, I'm gonna go with Remarkably Bright Creatures. I don't read a lot of happy books. It's not that I don't like feeling happy, but I just prefer my literature to be kind of sad, I guess, and dark and creepy and weird. But this was a really good read. It's not a favorite for me, but it's very wholesome and it's very sweet, and it's just, you know, like very warm-hearted, and so I would say this book is probably the one that made me the happiest. Okay, for books that I want to read this year that I haven't gotten to yet is Shuggie Bain, Douglas Stewart's older novel. I don't know why I read them out of order, but I just know this one is going to wreck me, so I've been putting it off. And the 5th season. I am on page 245. I'm about halfway through this book, and I think I'm gonna make a video about this because it's just a journey, but I really plan on finishing this and the series as well. And then the other book that's just been kind of in the back of my mind right now for no particular reason that I don't own but I really want to read is kind of a fantasy horror historical fiction novel, which is a lot going on, but I typically really like that, and that is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. I think that's his name. But that one's just been on my mind that I want to read a lot, so I think that's going to be my next purchase. Not that I need to purchase anymore. For favorite community member, I'm going to leave their pages linked down below in the description because I am blinking right now and can't think at all. So I'm going to leave them there. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of booktubers that have really inspired me to get back into reading, a lot of booktubers who I just love being able to read. Oh, hold on, wait. I just spied her from across the room, but I love the cover of Gallant. And I loved all of the art inside of Gallant as well. So she must be named. Anyway, the booktubers that have really affected me are, like, I consider them to be my friends, like a total nerd. So I'll link them below. I'm sure you already know who they are because they're amazing. Okay, that's it. That's my freak out tag. I hope it wasn't too long. I tried to make it a shorter video, but we'll see how that goes. And yeah, see you later.